Our streak of dry, warm weather just moments away from ending. I'm timing out a cold and snowy weekend here in Colorado.
In Ukraine, as war rages on,
people here are in hell right now, and there is no shortage of needs.
a Colorado native watches the violence unfold around him.
Even being here in Ukraine, we feel powerless to really stop this situation.
What he says is keeping him and his family going, and why they're hopeful Ukraine will be free again.
Most of the world sees what's really happening here and sees it for what it is.
Coping together.
It doesn't seem real. I'm still like in a daze, you know.
Friends and family gather to remember teens killed in a tragic Commerce City crash.
And we begin tonight with our streak of warm and dry weather coming to an abrupt end.
So tonight we're tracking rain turning to snow, and it looks like the snow will stick around through the weekend. Meteorologist Stacey Donaldson is timing it all out. Hi, Stacey.
That's right. We've had 60s and 70s the last few days. Today we hit 66 for an afternoon high, but as we go through the rest of tonight, we'll see that rain showing up in a couple of hours, and then it'll change over to snow around 3 a.m. So we are going to be dealing with snow tomorrow. That colder air sinking down from the north, and we'll have a lot of energy coming in from the southwest as well. So we already have rain and snow moving through Colorado, most of it moving from south to north. We have some light rain across the eastern plains and rain and snow off to our north as well. Here around Denver, cloudy skies. Not much has happened in the rainfall department yet, but that will change as we head through the next few hours. We have rain from New Raymer all the way up toward Sterling and into Akron and Yuma, down toward Lamar and Lyman. So here in the high country, we have some light snow now. That will change as we get into the weekend. Winter weather advisories in effect for most of western Colorado and for the northern part of the state as well in through tomorrow. So we'll talk more about snowfall totals and what we'll be expecting here in the Denver metro coming up in a few minutes.
Violence escalating in Ukraine now 9 days into Russia's invasion.
Moscow continues to target civilian areas. Ukrainian officials say Russian rockets today hit a school just west of the capital, Kyiv. That attack coming after assault on Europe's largest nuclear plant caused a fire, nearly leading to disaster. In Belgium today, the U.S. Secretary of State warned that violence is likely to increase.
The suffering we've already seen is likely to get worse before it gets better for as long as Russia pursues these methods.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's president is growing frustrated with the U.S. and NATO for not implementing a no-fly zone over his country. The alliance says doing so could bring them into direct conflict with Russia, which could lead to a world war.
The only way to actually implement something like a no-fly zone is to send NATO planes into Ukrainian airspace and to shoot down Russian planes, and that could lead to a full-fledged war in Europe.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin and his government continued their crackdown on voices opposing the violence in Ukraine. Today, the Kremlin announced Facebook and Twitter would be blocked in Russia.
We're here to protest the war, and we were here against the Russian aggression.
At our state capitol this evening, Coloradans gathered to not only demand Russian forces leave Ukraine, but to also remember those who've been killed in the fighting. One man we talked to is from Ukraine. He has friends there, and he is calling on the U.S. and NATO to put a no-fly zone over his home country.
That Ukraine really needs protection in the sky, right? We need to close the skies over Ukraine, and especially with the nuclear plants there, and that is a possibility of major catastrophe. So do it. Close the sky over Ukraine. That would help us preserve a lot of lives.
And even though 1 million Ukrainians have left the country as refugees, there are many millions more who chose to stay.
Some are fighting, some helping those who have nowhere to go. Among them, a Colorado man who is staying to help because his heart is now with Ukraine.
Joe and Dasha Riemer's a true love story. This CSU grad left his hometown of Bayfield, Colorado, to teach at a Christian school in Ukraine. And that's where he met Dasha.
I liked her for a long time. She liked me after a long time.
The two teachers married in Kyiv in June.
My family was there. Dasha's family was there as well, and a lot of our friends. Just looking at the pictures of it, I mean, it was, what is that, 8 months ago?
Yeah.
And it just feels like a different life.
They left Kyiv just before the fighting started and went west to Lviv, bringing others with them, kids, teens, and families whose fathers left to fight.
The thing I keep thinking about is just how many people are dealing with just impossible choices that they have to make.
Joe sent pictures showing their neighborhood of calm, yet people are scared.
At times we both feel sad and we want to cry, and we do cry.
Yeah.
At times we feel as angry as we've ever felt in our lives. And at times we feel so inspired by the good we're seeing people do here. And you feel all of those emotions every hour.
And they constantly worry. Dasha's hometown of Mariupol is under siege, where her parents stayed to care for her grandmother. She hasn't heard from them in 2 days.
I don't even know where they are, and some people are trying to leave. Some of them were able to do it. Some of them just had to turn back and go home because they started to shoot again. And that's all we know for now.
Joe and Dasha know they could leave Ukraine and choose not to for now. The need around them is too great, with food, medicine, and other supplies hard to find.
One day you'll go in and there'll be no meat. Another day you'll go in, there'll be no water. Another day, no bread.
They are finding comfort in helping their fellow Ukrainians, the sick, the poor, those with nowhere to go.
For me and for us, it's impossible not to see the hand of God in directing us here. And we believe that this is right where we're supposed to be right now.
And helping these helpers? Joe's friends he met while at CSU, even his fantasy football league friends.
They used that knowledge of how to send me money to start sending money when the war broke out. And we've done our best to use what was there just to get to people who were in situations where they need it.
And as they wait and watch the war play out in their beloved country of Ukraine, the Riemers tell me they really do feel your love and concern.
One of the things that's kept us going is knowing that most of the world sees what's really happening here and sees it for what it is. And so we're thankful for that. And we hope and we pray and we believe that we'll still have a free Ukraine after all this is over.
And his CSU friends set up a fund if you'd like to support the Riemers' effort, and that information is posted on the story on thedenverchannel.com. And the Riemers say, above all, they would appreciate your prayers.
Powerful interview. Well, police are looking tonight for 2 suspects after a homeowner was shot at confronting the men who were trying to steal his catalytic converter. The shooting happened this morning in the 8300 block of South Allison Street in Littleton. The Jeffco sheriff says one of the suspects shot at the victim but missed, luckily. The suspects then drove off eastbound on West Chatfield Avenue in a silver Honda. Well, today we talked to the victim's wife, still shocked by what happened.
It was daylight. It was 6:05. The sun was out. I mean, it's broad daylight. My husband could be dead now. Either he was a really bad shot or he deliberately missed.
Catalytic converter thefts have increased dramatically in recent years. Take a look at this. The state says more than 9,800 stolen last year, up from 1,100 the year before, and just 189 of them in 2012.
It has been 1 week since 4 teenagers died in a car crash at East 112th Avenue and Highway 85 in Commerce City.
Well, tonight, dozens of their loved ones gathered at that same spot to remember them. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta was there and spoke with the family of 2 of those teens.
Lovable. I mean, he was just different than other kids, I think he was inspiring.
On a dark night filled with light and love, this is how 16-year-old John Bledsoe is being remembered. But he isn't the only one. Dozens gathered near the spot where 4 teens were killed in a car crash 1 week ago. A spot still covered with car parts. But more importantly, now memorials as well.
It's not just us that lost somebody. There's also, 3 other people that unfortunately lost their life.
John Bledsoe was one of 4 brothers, the one the other 3 looked up to.
John was the oldest, and they really looked for him, for direction and just, you look for guidance in your older brother, I don't know what they're going to do without him. I don't know what any of us really are.
I know that Justin and John were real close.
13-year-old Joe survived the crash, only recently released from the hospital, working through injuries and the loss of his big brother.
He's doing all right. He says obviously he's in pain, which is understandable. He was in a major car accident. He hasn't really touched much on, losing John or anything. I don't know also if it's really processed for him.
Processing what happened here, still something those who showed up are trying to do through hugs.
Well, I've had an overwhelming amount of, support and outpour for prayers and condolences and everything, and it's been great.
And the company of family members, classmates, and even complete strangers. In Commerce City, I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
An arrest has been made 6 months after a man was found dead on an Aurora street. Adan Antonio Tobias Ramirez is booked for leaving the scene of a deadly crash. Investigators say he hit and killed a 35-year-old man back on September 7th at East Colfax and North Akron.
Denver Sheriff's Department tonight warning about a phone scam. They say an impersonator is calling people and then Sheriff Department information shows up on the caller ID. The impersonator then asks the victims to meet them to pay bond or maybe bail for a warrant. The Sheriff's Department says deputies would never call to request payments. If you believe you have been targeted by this, you should report it to police.
A heartwarming reunion months in the making.
When my husband saw it last week, Friday, I think, on just Facebook, and he goes, "Is this his?"
A Colorado child reunited with a beloved toy, the effort that made it all possible.
It's a weather action day as we track a snowstorm coming our way. Winter weather advisories all the way from Sterling and Greeley down toward Telluride and Durango. Coming up, I'll let you know what we expect here for the metro area and how much snow you might see in your neighborhood.
Plus, the Buffs continue their quest for the first ever Pac-12 Tournament Championship.